The people's reaction showed that they knew something was going on. For John the Baptist's mom, Elizabeth, and her dad, Zechariah, were already advanced in age. They were seniors, and Elizabeth was found to be with child. They knew something was amiss. Something was going on, and God's hand was very much in the mix. It says in the gospel also that the neighbors knew that God's mercy was upon Zechariah and Elizabeth. You know, I want to trace through God's hand going backwards with our Jewish brothers and sisters. So you hear of God's favor with the Israelite people, right? That in fact the Israelite people came upon this idea that there is one God. That was a blessing for the Israelite people to come upon that acknowledgement that there's one God. That the pagans had multiple gods, the Greeks had many gods, there are many Roman, but the Jewish people came upon one God, God's favor, God's blessing was upon the Israelite people. God's favor was upon the prophets. God's favor was upon King David. God's favor was upon Elizabeth and Zechariah. God's favor was upon Anna and Joachim when they got word that they gave birth to a beautiful daughter, Mary, who was born without the stain of sin. She was immaculately conceived, born without the stain of original sin. God's favor, God's blessing was upon Anna and her husband Joachim. God's favor was upon Mary when the angel Gabriel announced to her that she was going to have a child. God's favor was upon her. God's favor was upon the shepherds and the wise men when they came and paid homage. God's favor was upon the early disciples, the 12 apostles, who heard the call from Jesus and responded to the call of Jesus. God's favor was upon them. And the early Christian community, God's favor was upon them too. Do you see where I'm going? Do you see how God's favor extends from the time of Israel through the birth of John the Baptist, through the birth of Jesus? God's favor extended to the early Christian community. God's favor extended to the early martyrs who gave up their life because they believed in Jesus. Do you see how God's blessing has been at work in the early church and how God's blessing is at work today? Right now as we gather here, with John Paul II when he preached throughout the world, with Mother Teresa when she showed what it really meant to tend to the poorest among us, with Cardinal Supich as he calls his local church to a renewal. Do you see how God's blessing is still very much alive and well today? The same as it was when John the Baptist was born to Zechariah and Elizabeth in their advanced age. A friend of mine, when I ask how she's doing, she always responds, every single time, how are you doing? Blessed by the best. Can we respond the same? Can we hold that in our hearts, that we friends today are blessed by the best, our loving and generous God who brings all things into being? We're blessed by the best.